I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said the first thing about taking a book as a proof for your belief. You said no internal contradictions. How well do you know this book? I got this from your friend the other day. It's the Bible for all of you who don't know. I don't know which version it is. I don't know who's writing, who decided what to put it in here. John, we'll read John 1:17, 18. Do you know this one? I'll read what it says here. It says, no one has ever seen God, but God is the one and only who is at the Father's side has made him known. Right here, it says, no one has ever seen God, okay? Mm-hmm. You believe that? You take that? You want to read it? That's your book. This is what you take.
You bet.
Right here, same chapter, John 5:19.
Right.
Jesus, it says here, Jesus gave them this answer. I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can do only what he sees his Father doing. No one sees, he only does what he sees. Internal contradiction. So then this book has internal contradictions. Can we agree on that? Oh, you don't say yes or no answers. What do you say about this internal contradiction?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's conversation is one that many of us have either witnessed or been a part of a spirited debate about faith, scripture, and skepticism. I came across this fascinating video where a skeptic challenges a Christian about contradictions in the Bible, the reliability of scripture, and the essence of faith itself. It's a lot to unpack, so let's get right into it.
One of the basic principles of interpreting any book is you have to read in context. And obviously, when you read John chapter 1, the main point is Jesus is God in human form. He begins. Ma'am, am I allowed to answer you or not?
But you're not making sense. You say the same thing
then why are you wasting your time standing here talking to me if I'm not making sense?
Because look at all these people here who have questions. There's
fine, then why don't you let me go on to other people? If I don't make sense, ma'am, why do you waste your time?
Why am I going to let you misguide them with your misguidance?
Oh, I see.
Sit here and
so you have to sort of be a parasite who comes in here and just feeds off the people who are listening to me talk?
Absolutely, why not? You've already made a fool of yourself here anyways.
Why, that's pretty sad. Why can't you just be open and honest and have an honest dialogue?
Let me explain this.
Yep, okay.
Explain this.
Thank you.
Okay.
John chapter 1. John begins with the words, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Crystal clearly, John 1:1 is stating the deity of Christ. The word there is Christ. The Greek word is logos. Obviously, by reading John 1, you know he's talking about Christ. Obviously, he's hearkening right back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, which says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. John is taking that and putting it in Greek. John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Nobody has seen God. I haven't seen God. You haven't seen God. But the claim of John is, and the claim of Jesus is, that he is God, revealing himself in human form. That's clearly, unmistakably what John 1 is teaching. And you don't have to have a PhD in New Testament. Just read it yourself, and you'll figure that out.
It's both John. I didn't flip to even a different chapter. It's 2 pages away. Both John saying, one saying no one sees God, the other one saying Jesus sees God. Is it saying Jesus sees himself? Is this something that everyone who reads the Bible
that's exactly right. Jesus is claiming to be God, revealing himself in human form. That's his claim.
And he sees himself.
No, you're not God.
Why would John write that?
You're not God. Yeah. What's the difference? Well, if you die and rise from the dead, I will listen very closely to everything you have to say.
Why is that the one thing that you take?
Did you see George Washington inaugurated first president of the United States?
Other people did. I trust that.
Good, and other people saw Christ die on a cross and they saw him risen from the dead.
But they have internal contradictions.
No, there's no contradiction there. We human beings do not see God, but when God chose to become a human being in Jesus Christ, obviously Jesus knew the Father very, very intimately, very, very well.
I was raised a Catholic, and I think Jesus was a fantastic man that everybody should learn about his life.
How did you find out about Jesus?
I was taught.
By whom?
Through going to church and my family.
So why did you trust a priest in a Catholic church and your family to tell you the accurate truth about Jesus?
Really, because religion perpetuates brainwashing. That's the only way to say it. When you take a child and you teach them from day one that they have to go to church once a week, and it's just like learning a language. If you ask me to speak Chinese right now, I'm not going to be able to do it. But if I grew up in China, it would be second nature to me. Religion, think about baptism, okay? What is baptism? Why is it so important? Why was the idea that baptism is everything so perpetuated? You know what baptism is?
One of the key points raised in this discussion is the supposed contradiction between two verses in the Gospel of John. John 1:18 says, "No one has ever seen God," while John 5:19 suggests that Jesus acts on what he sees the Father doing. At first glance, it does seem contradictory. But let's take a step back. Context is everything. John 1:18 is emphasizing the mystery and majesty of God, that no human being can fully comprehend or see God's divine essence. It's pointing to the vastness of who God is. Meanwhile, John 5:19 focuses on Jesus' unique role as God incarnate. Here, Jesus is speaking about his oneness with the Father. When he says he sees the Father, it's not about human eyesight. It's about a divine connection and alignment in will and purpose. So rather than conflicting, these verses work together to reveal who Jesus is, fully God and fully man. Now, let's talk about the skeptic's perspective. They raised a great point about questioning what we're taught. Honestly, I respect that. Blindly accepting beliefs just because we were taught them as kids isn't enough. But here's where I want to push back a little. Questioning doesn't mean rejecting everything outright. For example, we're all taught a language as children. Does that mean we shouldn't trust it because we didn't choose it? No. It's what we do with it, how we grow and learn, that matters. The same applies to faith. Yes, many of us learn about religion from our families. But at some point, it becomes our responsibility to dig deeper, ask questions, and seek answers for ourselves. Faith should never be passive.
You are making the choice for a child that can't even make up its mind yet. You see, you've already indoctrinated them into a belief system. Without them being
where
able
does
to
Jesus
choose.
talk about infant baptism? Where does Paul or Peter or James talk about infant baptism?
How about John?
Where does anywhere in the Bible is infant baptism talked about? So I agree with you. You see, sir, we agree. Infant baptism is found nowhere in the Bible.
Okay.
So my question remains on the table, sir. What is your source of information about Jesus? Why did you trust that source? Be it the Catholic priest, be it your mom and dad?
Okay, fine. Yes.
What if we say
because I was
Muhammad?
raised since this big to know and taught. That's why you trusted.
Okay? I had to be a
Learn.
skeptic. I was not going to trust mom and dad and the local priest or minister to tell me the truth about Jesus.
You don't trust your father.
I have to go to the eyewitness testimonies.
Okay.
Which have been
That's a
changed.
whole-
That's right,
since
sir.
they were written.
I am
That's a
not
whole
going to
other
build
debate.
my life on what mom and dad tell me.
That's a whole other debate because the Bible
You
has
have
been
to
rewritten
think
about
things
4
through
times.
yourself.
All right. Well, you just mentioned to me that the Bible has been rewritten many times, and pieces of it have been excluded and are still being found right now. So what you're saying is that your first-hand source that you're talking about has been used. King James rewrote the Bible for a reason. Okay. And before our political systems were able to control the masses, religion controlled the masses. Religion was government.
All right. King James in the early 1600s did not translate the Hebrew Old Testament or the Greek New Testament. He didn't know the languages.
I'm not saying he did it himself. He was
He
the king.
hired
He told someone
Hebrew
to do
scholars and Greek scholars.
it. Right. Okay.
They did not change anything.
How do you know?
Because I've studied the Hebrew Old Testament and the Greek New Testament.
Do you know Hebrew and Greek?
I had to learn Hebrew and Greek in seminary.
The way that they
And
taught, the
I
way that
know
they spoke it at
that the
time
Old
was
Testament was
real.
written in Hebrew and the New Testament was written in Greek. Now, you raise a great question, which is, why should we trust Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to give us accurate historical information? Hopefully you have some tests, sir, that you use to determine historical reliability. Myself, I've got 4 tests. I use them on Suetonius, Herodotus, U.S. history, Greek history, any history. Nothing sacred about my tests. Come up with your own. My 4 tests are internal consistency, meaning by that, are there contradictions within the text that point to massive confusion? When you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you'll notice a tremendous internal consistency. No contradictions. Different perspectives? Yes. Second test, literary style. Once upon a time in the land of Nod, Wink and Blink and Nod took a boat ride. Obviously, that's fairy tale. It's not the literary style of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John use historical narrative, like a newspaper reportage, as literary style. Third test, archaeology. Are we talking about Jesus in the island of Atlantis? No. We're talking about archaeologically verifiable Bethlehem, Nazareth, Jerusalem, Rome, Sea of Galilee. Fourth test. Come on, man. 2,000 years ago, in the first century, these guys write these Gospels. Haven't you ever played telephone? You whisper a secret in the ear of the person next to you. They whisper it in the ear of the person next to them. Yes, I played that game. Yes, the secret's totally perverted. That is not how we have the Gospels handed down to us. Sir, the Gospels that we have today in English are based on over 5,200 Greek manuscripts, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree.
Another major point was about the Bible's reliability, whether it's been rewritten or manipulated over time. This is a common concern, and it's worth addressing. Here's the truth. While the Bible has been translated into many languages, the original texts in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek have been meticulously preserved. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, confirmed that the Old Testament we read today closely matches texts from over 2,000 years ago. King James didn't rewrite the Bible. His team of scholars translated it into English in the 1600s, but they relied on ancient manuscripts. Today, modern translations continue to reference these original texts. So while there are variations in language, the core message remains consistent. One part of the conversation really stood out to me, the idea that Jesus' resurrection is the foundation of Christian faith. The skeptic asked, "Why do you believe in this?" And the response was simple but profound. If someone rises from the dead, you pay attention. Think about that for a moment. The resurrection isn't just a claim, it's a historical event supported by eyewitness testimony, people who saw Jesus alive after his death and whose lives were forever changed by it. But here's the thing, faith isn't just about evidence. It's about trust. Trust in a God who doesn't just exist in theory, but shows up in real, transformative ways. This video reminds me why conversations like these matter. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, these debates challenge us to think deeply and ask big questions. For me, faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about embracing the journey, seeking truth, finding hope, and trusting in something greater than ourselves. So what about you? How do you wrestle with these questions? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found this reflection helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's keep the conversation going. What does faith mean to you?